The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now, 865-243-TALK. That's 243-8255. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
And welcome to the Patrick Riggins Show. Each week we bring you the information you need to continue your fight alongside us for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. Assisting us in this noble endeavor is the radio station burning up the airwaves of the Southeast. FWNOX FM 100.3, we're churning out 100,000 watts of frequency modulated carrier waves, which enables us to be heard in 5 states and 2 time zones. And if that wasn't enough, we are worldwide over the internet at www.wnoxfm.com. There you can watch and listen to this exercise in excellence, courtesy of the in-studio webcam located to my left. You're right if you're looking at your monitor. If you're scrambling to get up your web browser and missed that uniform resource locator, it is wnoxfm.com, or more correctly, I guess, http://www.wnoxfm.com. This week, just like every week, we have in the studio our show producer, Tori, who is pretty much the star of the Sunday afternoon radio here on WNOX.
Well, I do what I can. It's...
You're heard on every show on here, so...
Actually, yeah, one way or the other. I'm in whether you hear me like this...
Yeah.
You hear me
laughing in the background. So
I do enjoy my job.
Yes, and he does it well.
Yeah.
Scrambling around here while the intro's playing. So
trying to find headphones.
Trying to have working set of headphones.
And get Patrick's tea for him, his tea and his honey prepared for him.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe the writers he has, that I've got to... I got to take all the brown M&Ms out, and it's not very pretty.
I'm quite the prima donna when it comes to that, aren't I?
Yes.
Have to have a reception, people out here to come in and greet me with my drink, and
no brown M&Ms.
No brown M&Ms. Sort all those out, and then color them a different color and put them back in.
I just keep getting E's.
Yeah.
Or W's. I never get M's.
Never get, yeah.
These are the jokes,
Oh,
folks.
yes. Everyone will get that later on. Yeah. Later on they'll go, oh, yeah, I see what he's saying. He's turning it. All right.
I got him choked up.
Yeah. I'm still got this thing that's kind of blowing around Knoxville here, this whole bronchitis thing. It's I don't think it's I think you catch it and then you keep it for like 3 weeks. So I can hear it in my headphones. I don't know if you can hear it over the mic though. But anyway, we shall endeavor on. Thank you for tuning in this week. I am here every week working to open your eyes to what our country is becoming. And what would that be? Well, it's a bastion of European socialism, or as close to that as some of our so-called leaders can get it. Luckily, we are starting to see citizens of these United States educating themselves about what is happening and deciding to work to fix it. I think one of the reasons why Ron Paul has attracted so much attention during this last race is because he is speaking to an increasingly larger part of this population that is getting fed up with how people in Washington are acting. They are getting weary of all the ways government is injecting itself into our lives, supposedly for our benefit. But in reality, it's for its benefit. And people are starting to wake up to what is going on. Over and over throughout history, we've seen how a population has put on blinders in an effort to shield itself from their own government's misdoings. But now the government is getting so bold, so over the top with its invasions and outright stripping away of our rights and freedoms that people can no longer afford to ignore what is happening. That is why more and more people are starting to tune into shows like this one, because I speak the truth. I am consistent in my political analysis. I don't sit here and tell you what I think you want to hear. I tell you the truth and encourage you to open your eyes. Do a little bit of research and learn what is happening, and even more importantly, how you can stop this trend and start helping to get our country back on the road to regaining our freedoms. So, how do we solve these problems in our country? Well, it's easy. And we have 4 years to get the ball rolling. Well, 2 really if you count the next election. We need to recruit and support candidates that believe in working according to the Constitution. And then more importantly, vote them into office. Look, with the low voter turnout that we have during each election, it isn't going to take a whole lot of us to get our people into office. But it isn't going to happen overnight, and it certainly isn't going to happen by itself. It is going to take people working. But if enough of us are out there, it won't be hard because many hands make light work. The Tea Party has demonstrated that people getting together can make a difference. We need that same vigor applied from now on. Being involved is like being on a diet. You cannot just do it for a little while and expect the change to stick. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to stop accepting things as they come and determine that you are going to influence this country's future for the better. Now, you might have to give up some things, like cutting a little back on your TV time a little, but believe me, it will be worth it when we start to turn this country around. Personally, I'm going to continue to run this radio show as long as I have a voice and listeners, and maybe not even listeners, as long as I have a voice. And
that's iffy today. So
yeah, my voice is iffy today, but we're making it. So I encourage you to get your friends. If you don't want to badger them about these types of things, just get them to listen to this show, and I'll do it. That's what I get paid to do. Just tell them you heard this guy, Patrick Riggins, on the air, and he had some good points, and you want him to know what their take on me is. But in doing that, you'll get them to start hearing another point of view, a point of view that's more American, more original American, as we used to be here in this country. We're up on the first break here. This is Patrick Riggins. I'm going to give my voice a little break for a minute and a half, and we'll be back after these messages.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the Patrick Riggins Show. Nothing like trying to get that throat cleared before the mic comes on. Yeah. We're getting there. We're getting there. I'm a professional. I will do this show professionally, even if my legs fall off.
The ugly underbelly
of radio.
Live radio.
Yes. When you're downing pills and who knows if you got your brain all the way together.
Hey, NyQuil party at my house after work.
Exactly, yeah. You're thinking, wow, did I just say that? All right. We had the vice presidential debate this last week. Tori, we were talking a little bit above that, and you said you didn't catch that.
I did not catch a minute of it at band practice. So
yeah. I was thinking about Tori at band practice, so that's why I didn't catch it.
That's a good reason to miss it, man.
Yeah. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch any commentary about it, and I really haven't seen any clips from it.
So you're very informed on it.
Exactly. And you know what? From all of this, an amazing thing happened. Can you guess what it is, Tori, after all that?
No. What?
Nothing. Nothing happened. I didn't watch the debates, and the next morning, my shower still worked. My oven still heated up. My car still started.
The sky's still there.
The sky's still there. Everything was just as it was the day before. I didn't waste my time listening to frick and frack babble on about what their idea of how our country should be. And the next day I was fine. So see, it works. You should try it during the next presidential debate. Don't bother watching. See if when you get up the next day everything is okay. I'm sure it will be. because anything these four guys have to say is not earth-shaking. It doesn't matter what they pontificate about. I don't care, and you shouldn't either. Why? First off, because these people have voting records we can examine. I don't need to listen to what they have to say, whatever lie or cover-up they want to use. None of these people are unknown quantities. Instead of having a debate, how about a few hours of primetime coverage talking about their voting records? You can't lie about them. It is all right there in black and white. What came up? How did you vote? The truth of the matter is, if they did that, no one would vote for either candidate. They would have to include third parties because neither major party candidate would have anyone voting for them. When it comes to what they say, what they do, we never hear about the do part, only the say part. We know exactly how they are going to decide things. It is because they have voting records. Now, if these guys have been in government and we didn't know anything about them, like back in the days before mass communication, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have a 24-hour news cycle, you didn't know anything about these people. That is why I tell you these debates are a waste of time. You might as well watch paint dry, or at least do something more productive than watching two people tell you what they think you want them to hear, or they think you want to hear, or what their constituencies want to hear, or constituents, I guess, what they would like to hear. Getting back to my original thought, it's okay, I remember where I was. You used to not have any information about these people. You needed a debate to hear what each candidate stood for. Now you have all the information you could ever want on somebody. So much so that the news media wastes time reporting on what the pets of these people are doing. Who cares? I don't give a flip about the president's dog or Romney's dog, whatever.
I do.
Apparently Tory does. Is that the point at which we're now at in this country? That this is what's important. Our founders would be laughing, or more than likely crying, at the fact this is considered news. You have the voting records, everything they have ever talked about, just about every speech they have ever made. You have everything right there on the internet. Why even have a debate? They are just going to sit there and tell you what they think you want to hear. When it comes down to brass tacks, we know how you vote. We've got your record. We know how you think. We know what you've done and said. I don't need a debate to see your actions. You can sit here and tell me anything you want to tell me, but that doesn't mean it is what you're going to do, because it's not. They're going to try and sell you on someone they're not. And the news media and the Republicans and the Democrats are going to tell you these are the only two qualified people for the job of the President of the United States. That's baloney. That's the second problem with these debates. That of everyone running, these are the only guys qualified. Now, you and I both know that is not the case. The reason we have only two candidates debating is because the Commission on Public Debates, the nonprofit that's organizing them, is run by Republicans and Democrats. Surprised? If you listen to this show each week, you wouldn't be. You can get on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show and listen to the segment I did on presidential debates. It is very eye-opening if you aren't aware of how these things work. Now, it's sad, but at the same time, it's funny how the media, and both the liberal media, which is just about all mainstream media, and the conservative media will parse each sentence, each phrase, each word of these debates and highlight where one guy or the other is wrong, or where they're bending the truth, or just outright lying. But when it comes to our government as a whole, this is all totally ignored. No one is talking about the day-to-day usurpation of our rights by Washington. Just this week, President Obama signed a national emergency declaration first issued by President George W. Bush in 2001. 2001. That's 11 years ago, if you're mathematically illiterate. 11 years. We have been supposedly needing to keep renewing this national emergency declaration for the last 11 years. Is that sinking in to anyone else? I'll say it again in case you're missing the point. 11 years. This emergency or national emergency declaration involves several wartime powers that give the president greater control of the military, namely the ability to suspend retirements and separations of military personnel. Also, he can recall the ready reserve and activate recently retired Coast Guard officers and personnel, and prohibit or regulate financial transactions with foreign entities involved in terrorism. For 11 years, we have been renewing this declaration because of the 9/11 attacks. Again, it's 11 years. What about all of those liberals who are so anxious to get their man Obama into the White House? You are backing a man who endorses just about every single foreign policy action that was made under President George W. Bush. Someone you called a cowboy, you called him a frat boy. Heck, some of you even called him a terrorist by some people. Yet now you stand in defense of this person who is going against everything you supposedly stood for. And I've got to ask you, where are your principles? If you are a liberal and you are supporting Obama during this election, then, well, you're a sellout, plain and simple. Now, the truth may hurt, but there it is. This president still has us in Iraq. We're still in Afghanistan. He still has Guantanamo open for business. He continues allowing the TSA to violate your rights. He has even stepped up drone strikes against people accused, and mind you, I said accused, not convicted, of being terrorists. More so, he has bragged about how he is on the committee to pick, he is on top of picking the list of people to kill if they're spotted by a drone. Bragged about it. He's proud to be killing others without a trial. Yet, you liberals support him as though he has done none of these things. He even supports the rendition of people to other countries for questioning. So, someone is quietly sleeping in their house. A CIA strike team kidnaps this person, puts him on a plane, flies him to a, quote, friendly country, and interrogates him. No lawyer, no reading of his rights, nothing. Again, you support this. You blindly support a man who is violating people's rights in this way. So, how do you sleep at night? Is this why liberals get so angry when you question them about these things? Is it because I'm pointing up a disconnect between what they say they believe in, the liberals, and what they do believe in? I know a lot of liberals delight in my attacks on the Republican Party for the ways in which it tramples on the Constitution. But when I question their guy, then I'm crossing the line. They don't want to take the blinders off and see their people in Washington for what they are. No different than anyone else in government. They're power-hungry bureaucrats willing to prostitute themselves to the highest corporate bidder. Oh, no, not my representative. They don't do that. Sure they don't. Pull their voting record. It's right there online. Go through the Federal Register and see what they have been up to lately. On second thought, you probably don't want to do that because you would have to face the cold, stark reality that your representative is not really any different than anyone else's. And you have to have a boogeyman to fight, someone to rail against, because facing reality and working to change the system is just too much. Sure, you liberals scream about the conservatives until your guy is in office. And when he is doing the same thing the previous guy did, that's okay because it's my liberal guy doing it. We're up on the bottom of the hour of the break here. This is the Patrick Regan Show. We'll come back with the second half of the show, and we'll try to take some calls and get to a couple other things here. This is Patrick Riggins. We'll see you in a couple of minutes as I, again, rest my deep, I guess that wouldn't be bass, would it? Treble voice.
Velvety tones.
Velvety tones.
Velvety
I knew
tones.
you'd have the word, the adjectives for that.
The sultry voice.
Sultry voice. We'll be back here in a little bit.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Real quick before we get into this second segment too far, we're going to take a call here. Brian from Fountain City. How you doing, Brian?
Hey, good afternoon. I was enjoying the Zappa part of your bumper music.
You like that?
Then it kind of fell into some easy listening only stuff. And it's like, I hope no one's tuning in right now. They won't know that this is a talk show.
Yeah, that's Tori's a big Frank Zappa fan.
Thank you.
Well, that makes two of us.
Yeah, he'll appreciate it. I love that lead-in song, too. What's that? The Slime, isn't it, Tori?
I am the slime.
I am the slime, yeah. What do we got today, Brian?
Well, gee, where to start? What passes for debate in this country these days, unless it's some sort of news show shouting match, whoever shouts the loudest is the winner, then it devolves into that prime time infotainment.
Yeah.
Which is...
it's exactly what it is. It's an infomercial.
Yeah, and it's all tastes great, less filling. Less filling.
Good way to put it.
And, when it comes down to it, you got one party saying, well, we're having pizza, and it's going to have this kind of crust, and, the marinara sauce on it, and mozzarella cheese, and it's got to have pepperoni or it ain't a pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And now we can pick off this other stuff that comes with it that we don't like. But those other evil guys over there, they've got whole wheat crust, man, and Alfredo sauce and feta cheese, man. And I think they even put pineapples and ham on it.
Yeah.
And
they hid it, too. They hid it down in there so you wouldn't see it.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what kind of pizza do you want? And it's like, dude, I want some raw meat, ramen noodles, and a beer. I don't want pizza.
Yeah. Well, that's too bad.
Yeah.
You're going to have to call Ron Paul if you want that.
You get pizza and
well,
like it.
Isn't it really amazing? And just, looking at how close, say, the 2000 election was, which was, if you want to get technical, I guess it's the closest we've ever had. But it still comes down to 1 out of 6 Americans get to choose the folks that tell the other 5 folks in the equation how to live.
Well, Brian, let me bounce something off. This is something I've not talked about on the show, and I've not done enough research on it yet to formally postulate it here. But the feeling I get is the reason we're having these close elections is because we don't have someone who stands out there and puts it on the line and tells you exactly how they feel. Because when we have a candidate that does that, usually we landslide. Because this person...
I'm saying that if you're not one of the 2 majority parties, you get no love in the press.
Oh, no. Well, because there's no difference between the 2 of them.
Well, yeah, but if you are a third party or a fourth or a fifth party, you get no love because the other 2 parties, the 2 majority parties, so dominate the press and everyone's perception that no one will, unless they're really gung-ho, libertarian or green, or, for whatever, any other party out there that has organized and is actually running candidates. And that is such a small minority, really. that everyone's perception is, well, they can't possibly win, and I want to vote for a winner.
They want to vote for one. That's exactly right. That's what happens.
So,
and as I've said on this show, vote for the third party you believe in and tell everybody you voted for the winner. Who's going to know?
Yeah, absolutely correct. And, hold folks to what they say. I mean, if you remember back in 1994, as a backlash against perhaps Hillary Care and Bill Clinton in general, there was the Republican Revolution, where they, had
they all swept in
for America. And the very first one of those planks was term limits for Congress.
Yeah.
It got mentioned once in Congress and promptly went away, and we haven't heard from that faction since.
Well,
we brought it up.
That's
brought it up, it went away.
Yeah, I think that term limits, I kind of see that as abdicating your responsibility to vote the bums out.
Well, it is, but also, by the same token, I need incumbent and voter apathy protection.
You won't buy some insurance for that.
Well, I mean, term limits kind of helps out, because it's going to have a turnover, fresher faces, not someone who's had their palms greased by lobbyists for however many years,
Yeah, exactly.
And, my reelection campaign. I really wonder when conservatives in Washington and liberals in Washington compare their donors list, how much it is exactly the same as they're clinking their martini glasses together, smiling real big.
I'm up on the break here, Brian. I got to let you go here. I appreciate the call. This is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show. We'll be back after these messages.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
This is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show. Had a good call there from Brian. Appreciate it. What I want to get to a little bit for this last short segment of the show, and it's something that's been bugging me lately, and it should be bugging you. Although we just mostly make jokes about it, what is bugging me is all the lies the government is telling us on a daily basis without any remorse or embarrassment. Just lies. It's almost like they are trying to see if we are listening or paying attention. Such as, when you're telling a story to someone and they're only half listening, so you slip something in outrageous to see if they catch it. And if they don't, they aren't with you. Now, I know how this sounds. If you're sitting out there and looking at all of this, how the administration and the government has worked with the media to pull the wool over your eyes. If you sit out there and say this is all conspiratorial, nothing's going on, this is all coincidence, you need to wake up. You are just fooling yourself. You are one of the cattle heading to be slaughtered. No, they're not going to kill us. They're not using us. That's not what's happening. It's like you're in a bad relationship. You're telling yourself and others that this person isn't that bad, when all your friends and family are telling you to leave this person. They're all screaming at you, telling you, yes, this person is bad, they are evil. And what happens? Well, eventually, the guy just keeps beating you and either leaves you or kills you. If it's in the guy, I guess a woman could do that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Tori knows.
Oh, yeah.
He's not saying he's been on the brunt of that, though. But
no, yeah, well, that's
well, you got to turn in your man card, careful where you walk. but we sit out here and listen to all this garbage and this stuff that's wrapped up in a neat little package, and Brian hit on this in the last call, that they just wrap it all up and want you to accept it and say this is the best we got, and we really don't need to be doing that. Real quick, we'll jump to Sherman here in Severe.
Hi, how are you doing?
Oh, pretty good, I guess.
Okay. I was wanting to ask, I noticed no one ever really brought it up much about President Obama's ring that he's wore since way back in the 80s. Every picture you look at, you'll see he has that same ring on.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people thought, well, are you married or something? That's before you ever met Michelle. But the ring has Arabic inscription on it, and it says there's one God, Allah.
Uh-huh.
And I was just curious because, Obama always claims being a Christian and everything, but what's the attachment to that ring so bad?
Well, I don't know, but of course, we don't have a constitutional requirement that you be a certain religion to be president. But I understand what you're saying as far as you wonder where his loyalties lie.
Yes. Well, I mean, he claims that he's a Christian, but I don't know of any Christians that wears a ring with an Arabic inscription that says but one God, but, is Allah.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's just trying to fit in with the rest of the government who tells you one thing and does another. But
if you look at, if they research the pictures and everything, you go all the way back into like 1981, there was a picture of him sitting there with his grandparents on that. He has the same ring.
Yep.
And I was just kind of curious about that, And, all the pictures of him ever since. Matter of fact, when him and Michelle got married, he gave her that ring, and she gave it back to him as the wedding ring. Same ring.
Well, it is. It's an interesting, and you kind of wonder where his loyalties lie. But then again, I wonder that about 99% of Congress. So,
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I just heard you talking about, for these politicians being truthful, and that's fine. If the man's a Muslim, or whatever his beliefs are, that's fine with me. It looks to me like they wouldn't try to hide it, though. Why not stand up and just say truthfully what you really are?
Oh, well, you know why they try to hide it, because to say that you are a Muslim, especially in America nowadays, that you're running for president, would be politically the death knell for your candidacy. That's the same thing as if you were back in the 1960s and you ran for president as the Communist Party's candidate. You could just hang it up. And I think that's why, and if he's Christian, he's Muslim, either way, I don't mind either way. What I do mind is the fact that he's stripping away our rights and freedoms pretty much like every president's done almost the whole time.
I agree with you there. That's true. Our Constitution is just being shredded by these politicians that they don't even really consider the thoughts of our forefathers and what they truly had in mind and how they established this country on these rights. I mean, this has just been outrageous, the way that we've allowed this stuff to happen to us. And they do it, a little bit at a time.
Sure.
Before it gets to the point that you have no rights left.
Thank you for the call there, Sherman. We're coming up on the end. Thank you, Sherman, for that call. And I understand what he's saying. He's wondering about our president's loyalties. And as I said, I don't really have a problem with whoever wants to run, what religion they are. Are they respecting the Constitution and our rights? That's what is important. That's the oath they take. That's the oath that Congress takes. And they routinely violate that oath, well, probably almost every day they're in office or in session. None of these guys are golden. None of these guys are totally clean. And that's the problem with politics. And I said something about this last show, and I think we even used part of it on a promo. Politics, the way I defined it as, politics is where we find out, it's kind of a market-based thing where we find out what you'll sell out for. What are you going to sell your principles out for? And I addressed this a little bit at the first part of this show where I think liberals are selling out their principles, backing their man Obama, just the same way I think conservatives are selling out their principles, backing Romney and Ryan, from looking at just not what they say, but what they've done, how they've voted. Both of them demonstrably are not people who adhere to the Constitution, either side. And you can go through Congress and see that exact same thing. There's one or two differences, or people who stand out who have voted almost always on their principles. One of them's Ron Paul, of course. His son, Rand Paul, is not quite as good as Ron, but getting there. So anyway, just keep that in mind when you're watching all these debates. Keep in mind that there's just not a lot of difference between the two, and listen to everything they say through your libertarian filter. All right, we're up on the end of the show here. If you want more information about us, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. Be sure and hit the like button there on Facebook. Also on Twitter at little @ Patrick Riggins. And if you missed something or you want to hear the show again, you can go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. And you can also email us at patrickriggins@gmail.com. Join me next Sunday afternoon, where once again we'll talk about freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. This is Patrick Riggins. We'll see you next Sunday afternoon at 2. Have a great week.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on the Patrick Riggins Show. Every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. Be there.